Hi, my name is Matthew Belisario. Welcome to another edition of the Belisario Sonic YouTube channel. Today is part 2 of my analog versus digital, or vinyl versus digital. And today is going to be more of a um, it's going to be more of a technical video, but I'm going to try to keep it short and sweet so that when you're looking at different audio formats and codecs, you know exactly what you're listening to. And the biggest thing, uh, in the first video I talked about the Heart CD and two different vinyl versions. It was recorded analog for the CD. It was mixed digitally, and it was mastered digitally for the CD. On the vinyl, you had an analog recording, and I haven't been able to find out how it was actually mixed and mastered for the analog vinyl. However, during the video, I talked about how all three of them sounded distinctly different: the original vinyl, the reissued vinyl, and the CD. And so in the first video, I kind of gave an overview of the analog versus vinyl and how each individual recording had to be looked at specifically, versus just saying vinyl's better, digital's better. And also, I talked about the logistics. So, how are you listening to your music? Mobility. What kind of system are you listening to it on? All those things matter. And how it was recorded. Was it recorded digitally? Was it recorded in the 70s with analog equipment? So there's a lot of different things to look at. It's not just as simple as saying analog's better than digital or digital's better than analog. So a lot of different things to talk about there, or to go, that I went over in that first video. This video is going to be more of a technical video, and again, I'm going to try to keep it short and sweet. And what it comes down to is sample rate and bit rate. So we're going to talk about that. That way you can go look at whatever format files you have and what the sample rate and the bit rate means. Now, if you, I've been involved in engineering or technical careers throughout my entire life. It's been in the technical side of things, whether it's been in wireless or been in audio, video, or broadcast, different things like that. So I am very involved in the technical aspects of audio and video. And I do my own recording here as well in my little recording studio. But just to keep it simple, when you hear any kind of audio hits your ear, you're hearing it analog. It's a sine wave. It looks like this. You can see it there on this particular diagram. You see that center uh, sine wave there. Now, that means that just basically is an example of what an audio wave sounds like when it hits your ear, and how if it's recorded analog, it's a sine wave, and if it's playing off your record, it's a sine wave. Um, Now, what a CD or DVD does, or any kind of digital format does, is it tries to replicate that particular sine wave. So when it's recorded onto a digital format or played back, you have two things. You have a sample rate, which is left to right. Think of sample rate this way. And then bit rate is this way. It's depth. And you can look at the more finer it samples this way, and the deeper bit rate it has, the more it replicates a sine wave. So if you look up there and you see that purple line, that's an example of what a CD audio output would look like compared to an original sine wave. You can see how it's really blocky, right? It doesn't follow right along that line very closely. So there's a lot of error there. And when you listen to that, you can hear it. It sounds more harsh. Doesn't replicate. Doesn't sound as real as a real. It doesn't sound as authentic as a real sine wave. Then when you go into DVD audio, you see that little orange blocks follows way more closely along that analog line, right? So it most closely replicates that. So that just gives you an idea. So kind of keep that in mind. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to this particular uh, screenshot and show you what that means in a little bit more finer detail. So if you look to the left, imagine that as being a CD, the far left sample rate, and then imagine the DVD as being the center one, and then real fine audio quality of a sine wave with no error. So you can see how it replicates closer and closer to that sine wave. The finer your sample rate is, and the better your bit rate depth is. So when you go from a CD from 16-bit up to a 24-bit, you get this depth and if it's closer along the sine wave. And when you have your sample rate going from 44.1 up to 96 or up, up higher even, then that gives you a finer sample this way. So it follows closely more along that, gives you an authentic sound. So, and this goes for any kind of audio format. So, if you're going to talk about MP3s, right? Go take a look and see what your MP3 bit rate is and the sample rate is. Go take a look at what your AAC is, what your sample rates are and your bit rates are for those. I'm not going to get into all these individually because it's really boring for people. But if you have a file format that uses like 320 kilobits, like Spotify streaming, it's crap. It's not going to sound good, okay? So on a CD versus a DVD, just to break it down for you to talk about the difference, if we're going to talk about the difference between the CD audio sample rate, the sample accuracy of it, of a DVD versus CD, and then the output level, which is the overall output level of how it follows along that sine wave. Here's what we get. Okay, a CD audio is going to give you 44,100, 44.1, which you always see samples per second this way. As soon as you go up to a DVD audio, you're going to get 96,000 or 192,000. So depending on what it is, you can look on the back of your DVD. So even if you only have the 96, it's going to be over double of what a CD audio is, that many samples coming from this way. When you go to your bit rate, you got a CD at 16 bits. That's your depth. DVD audio now is at 24 bit. Well, that doesn't seem like a lot, but when you put it all together and you take a look at your output levels there at the bottom, it's a huge difference. So take a look at that. You're talking about 65,536 on your output level. It's overall accuracy to follow that sine wave. And now you've got your DVD audio at 16,777,216,000. So it's a huge difference in sound. No matter what anybody says, these are what the specs say. And you can usually tell. And again, it depends on what you're listening to it on. There's a lot of different things to look at. So, you could put a CD in and one of the DVDs in, and maybe, depending on what you're listening to it on, you might not be able to tell that much of a difference. But if you put it on a nice stereo system and you put it on there, you're going to hear a noticeable difference in how it sounds. And I would argue that the DVD audio, when it's at 192, 24-bit, 192, you're going to really hear a very close representation of what you would hear on a vinyl record. And you don't have to worry about all the imperfections of a vinyl record with the crackle and the pop, right? So those are just some things to think about. Now, again, I'm a big vinyl guy, and I enjoy listening to a good vinyl record, and I enjoy the sound and the resonance that I get on my system, and the way it just has a kind of a unique sound usually compared to the DVD audio quality. But let me tell you, I'm really getting excited about the different bands and these smaller labels that seem to be gravitating towards the DVD audio that comes with a CD set. I'm really getting excited about that, and especially when they're doing 5.1 mixes now, and even the Atmos with your speakers above you. This is really, I think, is a game changer if these companies will get on board and really try to market this to the younger generation of this high sound quality that you're going to get on a Blu-ray. And that you can't get on Spotify because they can't stream at that bit rate. It's too much. But the fact that you can actually have a physical medium that creates something that you can't get even if you do have a mobile system, because you're not going to have a 5.1 usually in your car. I think there are some nice Harman Kardon systems in cars now that actually have a center speaker with almost a 5.1 surround. That's pretty cool, and I'd like to have that in the next car that I get. So, anyhow, I digress. Let's keep in mind what your sample rate is, what your bit rate is, and when you're listening to music, go and see what it is. Look at the format, see what the sample rate and the bit rate is, and then compare it to what you'll have on a CD and compare it to what you'll have on a DVD, and you'll really get an idea of what you have there. and then listen to it on a decent system, you're really going to hear a big difference. So that's today's video. I'll stop there, keep it very quick, very simple.